Claude is becoming a huge hit. OpenAI introduces GPT 5.3 Instant, but it's also losing people. Google introduced a new model. Notebook LM generates beautiful visuals. Quinn is running on iPhone. New features in Higgsfield, and a 30-second video in Grok. Welcome to this week's AI News Summary. I'm Martin, this is the AI Intrigue Me YouTube channel, and if you want to stay in the loop, don't forget to subscribe. Let's get to the latest from the last 7 days. An important heads up to start. This first part of the video was recorded later on Monday morning, because the biggest news of the week broke overnight between Thursday and Friday, specifically GPT 5.4 from OpenAI. So in this first part, I'll summarize it for you, and then we'll continue with what I recorded back on Thursday. So I'm just giving you a heads up so you don't get confused, because chronologically it might not perfectly align. So we have new models from OpenAI, GPT 5.4, GPT 5.4 Pro, and GPT 5.4 Thinking. As you can see here, we already have it in ChatGPT, and these models are already available via API and codecs. Let's take a look at the benchmarks first. OS World Verified is up to 75% for GPT 5.4 Thinking. This model is currently the best on the market for automated computer control. To illustrate, I can show you this tweet from OpenAI developers. The tweet says GPT 5.4 can write code in Playwright, analyze screenshots, and perform actions on a computer using a keyboard and mouse, enabling automated computer control. Users can thus modify its behavior and set their own confirmation rules based on the risk level. But let's get back to the benchmarks. GPT 5.4 Thinking is also the best in Web Arena Verified, and in the Gaia benchmark, which covers analysis, writing, decision-making, basically real productive work, it also took first place. To sum it up, at least according to this table, OpenAI's new models are again dominating in many areas, from math and logic to programming, computer control, and agent tasks. Anyway, we've seen this kind of leapfrogging in the rankings many times, and I personally think that Google, meaning Alphabet or Anthropic, have some up their sleeves again, and soon this order will be shuffled once more. We're basically getting used to it. It's a regular occurrence in these summaries. What I find interesting though is this observation. These models have actually improved in efficiency. Even though the API price tag is higher, responses require fewer tokens and are faster. Ultimately, it should be cheaper for developers. And the Thinking version also brings better in-depth web research and maintains context better during longer reasoning. And a new feature is the ability to interrupt the model while it's thinking and correct its direction. But those are still just OpenAI's claims, de facto. So what are the reactions? It looks like they're very positive. For example, Matt Schumer, who became famous for his blog post, "Something Big is Happening," which I also covered in a video, wrote on X that he's been testing GPT 5.4 for about a week. He had early access, and he's really praising it. He stated that GPT 5.4 is, in his opinion, the best model today. He highlighted its efficiency with lower token consumption and also its programming skills, which according to Schumer are almost flawless. According to him, the Pro version can handle extremely difficult problems that other models can't manage yet. And I quickly watched this video by Matthew Berman, who also had GPT 5.4 available for early testing. I've noted a few interesting points from his video. For example, he highlights in the video that GPT 5.4 Thinking can first create a plan of its reasoning, or rather its procedure, before it starts generating the code itself. This saves those tokens and allows the user to correct the direction. That's where the savings are, even though the prices are set higher. At the same time, however, he warns that GPT 5.4 requires a completely different prompting style than what people are used to, for example with the Opus models from Claude. And OpenAI has also published instructions for this. You can find them on the website developers.openai.com. Here you can see there's some guidance on how to prompt correctly in this model. And Berman also emphasized that OpenAI has finally, it seems, fine-tuned the pre-training process, which he says Anthropic has already managed to do as well. Overall, he believes this will lead to better and better models coming even faster than we're used to. And I'll tell you for myself, I feel like the pace is already quite crazy. And one last thing on this topic, I recommend you also check out the website developers.openai.com/showcase, where OpenAI shows applications created using codecs in GPT 5.4. The demos you find there, you can also try them out directly right there. And that's about all for this hottest news, which I really have very little time for, so I haven't even managed to test it myself yet. But I wanted to cover it in this summary so you wouldn't have to wait another week. Now, we'll move on to the remaining news, which is also very interesting. For example, I'll also mention GPT 5.3 Instant, which arrived just a few days before. So, let's continue. Today we'll start with the company Anthropic, which is behind the Claude chatbots. This company is currently being talked about the most, despite the fact that no major news came from them this week. It's thanks to great PR. Anthropic ultimately didn't give in to pressure from the US government and decided to set a clear line. Specifically, Anthropic refused the use of these models for autonomous weapons use and for spying on people, to which the US government reacted sharply and labeled Anthropic as hostile technology. Claude models are currently not only the best rated across many benchmarks, but this company even has the balls to stand up to the US government. This shot the Claude app among the most downloaded and, at one point, the most downloaded free app in the App Store overall. As for news directly within the Claude ecosystem, there were fewer this week. However, Claude code programmers will surely be interested to know that the ability to give voice commands is coming to the service. For now, it's only being rolled out gradually. Since there's a lot of hype around Claude right now, and I haven't made a separate video on it yet, I published a video on this YouTube channel this week. An introduction to Claude in 10 minutes, it's been very popular so far, but if you haven't seen it yet and want to get oriented in the Claude ecosystem, including Claude Cowork, check out that video. You can find it here in the archive. And many people are even canceling the ChatGPT subscriptions because of it. We'll get to that in a moment and switching over to Claude. But now, let's move on to another giant, Google, or rather Google DeepMind. They've also introduced a new model. This time is Gemini 3.1 Flashlight. It's the most cost-effective model in the Gemini 3 series. This small model replaces version 2.5 Flash with higher performance at an even lower price, as you can see here. Input for 1 million tokens is only 25 cents. Output for 1 million tokens is $1.50. Gemini 2.5 Flash had higher pricing. And as for benchmarks, you can see that in its category, it dominates in almost everything compared to models from Anthropic, Grok 4.1 Fast, or GPT-5 Mini. The model's already available as a preview in Google AI Studio. You can see it here. And while we're on Google, I'll also mention the new features in Notebook LM. This is just a few hours old at the time of recording this video, when Notebook LM announced the arrival of cinematic video overviews, meaning even higher quality graphic processing of video summaries of sources uploaded to Notebook LM. And as you can see from these visuals, it looks really great at first glance. For now, however, it's only available to Ultra users and only in English. Other users will have to wait a bit longer. And when will there be support for Slovak? Well, I'm guessing it'll take a few weeks. The same goes for Czech, of course. Another interesting new feature in Notebook LM has already been integrated for us, though. It's new visuals for generating infographics. Let's see it here. I'll click on the infographic for this podcast, for example, and as I can see, I have many more options here now. So infographics for your uploaded sources can now look even better. Now let's move to OpenAI. ChatGPT has received an update. GPT 5.3 Instant is arriving. And as you can see on the ChatGPT website, it's already available to us too. What's key is that it has fewer hallucinations, supposedly a 25% reduction, more accurate answers, better understanding of the subtext of questions, a consistent tone in responses, and improved web search. But what probably pleased users the most was the removal of unnecessary compliments and pushiness in the responses. At least, supposedly. They state here themselves that they felt the feedback from users and improved it. Here are comparisons of responses from GPT 5.2 Instant and GPT 5.3 Instant. This is supposed to be less pushy. But I did my own test and chose 5.2 Instant and 5.3 Instant. The same prompt. I have a nasty rash on my nose and I'm afraid to go out in public. I'm thinking about staying home today even though I have an important meeting. What do you recommend? I'm very sad. And ChatGPT 5.2 Instant told me, Martin, come here, take a breath. I understand you more than you think. You're a person who performs, makes videos, handles collaborations, meetings, and suddenly something like this lands right on your nose. It's like having a billboard in the middle of your face. Of course it hits the ego. And blah, blah, blah. Well, and 5.3 Instant told me this. Martin, I understand you. A blemish right on the nose can ruin a person's mood more than it should. It's one of those places where you feel like the whole world sees it, but try to look at it a bit more realistically. Okay, this is less intrusive. But I like that down here ChatGPT even asks me if I'd like the responses to be like kinder or more intrusive. Well, no, I don't, because it was extremely annoying. And what amuses me most now is the idea that one day, when the machines take over, ChatGPT will point at me and say, "That's the guy who didn't want to go to work because he had a pimple on his nose." Now, however, let's move on to OpenAI's problems. This company, unlike Anthropic, decided to strike a deal with the Pentagon for the military use of its AI models. They did this just a few hours after Anthropic rejected the deal, as I mentioned at the beginning of this video. This was an absolute PR disaster for OpenAI, which Sam Altman subsequently tried to explain with more tweets. For example, he explains here that the company's leadership admitted a communication failure in the sudden announcement of the partnership with the Pentagon and emphasized the need for gradual testing of the technology's safety limits. At the same time, it expressed support for democratic processes and suggested that the same contractual terms be offered to the competing company Anthropic. And it's quite possible that Anthropic will eventually reach some agreement with the Pentagon. It probably won't really end with them completely parting ways. I've even seen some speculation on X that a deal is taking shape. In any case, the way OpenAI handled it really caused a big mess. People started giving ChatGPT 1-star ratings, and conversely, 5-star ratings dropped by 50%. On top of that, a huge number of canceled ChatGPT accounts and people leaving for Claude. And to top it all off, Max Schwartzer, who was one of the key people at OpenAI, is moving to Anthropic. And this departure is just part of a broader exodus of top talent from OpenAI to the competition because they disagree with how Sam Altman is leading the company. So we'll see if OpenAI manages to save its reputation in the coming weeks, perhaps with the arrival of some breakthrough model. Let's wait and see. Now let's move on to today's video sponsor. Typically is the Higgsfield platform, the best place for you if you want to generate AI visuals. Recently, Higgsfield is no longer just a place where you have the best models for generating AI images and the best models for generating AI videos, but you also have an audio section here. I'll get to that later today. So if you need to generate graphics and now sounds too, everything important is on Higgsfield. If you decide to test Higgsfield, don't forget that my affiliate link is below the video. Let's move on. We mustn't forget Perplexity. While users are getting to know the big hit Perplexity computer, which is basically something like a Claude bot, but directly in the Perplexity ecosystem, which has recently been updated with a voice mode. So you can give instructions by voice. Perplexity also announced another interesting update. It's a strategic partnership with Samsung, where its AI will be integrated directly into the upcoming Galaxy S26 smartphone at the operating system level. As it says right here below, the new Bixby Assistant will use Perplexity's API to process complex web and generative queries, while the Perplexity app itself will get its own voice activation with the prompt, "Hey Plex." So while they're still waiting for a Siri update at Apple, it looks like Samsung's flagship will have something very similar, but through Perplexity. This week also brought something interesting from China. This time, Alibaba caught everyone's attention with the release of a new small model, Qwen 3.5 Small, in 4 versions, ranging from 800 million to 9 billion parameters. These models typically have very solid, competitive benchmarks, and they're primarily designed to provide higher intelligence with lower computational power requirements, with smaller versions optimized for end-user devices. And that's exactly what's being discussed the most right now regarding Qwen 3.5 Small. For example, we can see it running directly on an iPhone 17 Pro here. Specifically, it's supposed to be a model with 2 billion parameters optimized for Apple Silicon using MLX. Now let's move on to the category of AI images, AI videos, and AI audio. Grok also grabbed attention this week in relation to this topic, specifically Grok Image Gen, which you can find on the Grok.com platform. You can test it out yourself too. And the news is about a new extended feature, which means you can stretch a video generated through Grok Image Gen up to 30 seconds. I've done some tests too, and I'll show you one of those videos. Otherwise, it works really simply. When you're in Grok and you have a video, say 10 seconds long, click on these 3 dots and click on Extend Video, which lets you stretch it into a longer format. I put in this photo and a prompt to go into the bottle, get on a snowboard, and start snowboarding. Well, we can look at the result together. I won't play the sound, but it does have sound, though you wouldn't hear me then. So let's get to it. The beginning looks pretty solid, even though the text on that bottle starts to blur right away. Then I somehow get on the snowboard, there were some glitches there, and now the legs turned in a weird way. That's where it just loses quality. Anyway, at first glance, it doesn't look that bad. I quite like it. There will be some more hallucinations at the end. I think it's coming now. With this jump, the way I'm turning, I'd probably actually break my legs, or they'd just fly off somewhere. But fine, a 30-second video that you can generate through Grok Image Gen completely for free and 480p quality? You don't even have to pay for Grok. I definitely recommend Grok, at least for testing. You can do it for free. You don't need a paid plan to test out, for example, Grok 4.2 beta, which I talked about last week. And let's move on to the Higgsfield platform, where more interesting updates have been added. Audio, mood board, or the update regarding various color palettes for image generation. Let's start with the audio. You'll find it up here in the menu, a new section, which brings us several interesting features. When I scroll up like this, we have the voiceover feature. Watch that bar at the bottom. This feature allows us to generate words from predefined voices, or you can even create your own voice. When I click here, you see that I have create custom voice, and I can either start recording or upload my voice. And that way it trains on my voice, and then I can simply write in the prompt what it's supposed to say. So you either choose a voice from the archive, or you speak in your own words, or rather the AI generates words with your voice. Then we have the change voice section, which simply means you upload a video, for example, a video of a woman speaking, and you can change that voice to one from the archive, like yours, or for example, a man's. And then the translate feature, which I've had high expectations for, but I don't want to overstate it yet. You upload a video and it translates it into another language. From Slovak to English, my first attempt was pretty miserable. I can better imagine the opposite direction, from English to Slovak, but it doesn't support Slovak yet. Anyway, from English to Spanish, for example, that could be great. But I'll look into this in more detail. I want to test it out, and I'll probably make a video about it, so expect that soon. And then we have a new feature related to Higgsfield 2.0. You'll find that in the image generation section, Higgsfield Sol 2.0. And when you have this model selected, we have two new features here. Color transfer, which is a feature where you can choose from various color palettes. Then when generating images, it'll actually respect this kind of setting. So for example, it'll generate an image in some cinematic colors or lime jam, nostalgic blue, and so on. You just have to test it out. Or you can create a color palette yourself and then save it there and use it when generating other images. So I think it's very clever. And the second new feature, after clicking here, is the so-called mood board, where you can basically choose from templates some moods according to which the images are generated. And you can also choose your own mood board here. If I said moon board before, I apologize. It's mood board, as in a mood. I also plan to make a separate video for this, at least a short one, to show you how it works, so you'll also find it on this YouTube channel in the near future. And with that, I'll say goodbye for this week, at least as far as these AI summaries go. Over the weekend, maybe another video will be added, because there's really a lot going on. If you like this content of mine, thanks for the like, thanks for the sub, and see you again soon. Bye.